On today's episode of WatchJRGo, we are here with the 2024 Acura TLX Type-S that I just drove 3,000 miles straight across the country in. This is the short-term, very long-term review. What is going on, guys? I'm WatchJRGo, and like I said, we are here with the 2024 Acura TLX Type-S. This was a brand new car when we picked it up in Seattle. It had just a little under 3,000 miles on it, and I have some thoughts on this car. So first, let's run around, check this thing out on the exterior real quick, talk about driving it across the country, and then take it for a little drive, and we'll let you guys give me your thoughts on what you think about this car. Is it worth $60,000? Its stickers for like 55, but you know, 60 out the door kind of thing. So first of all, let's talk about the color. I love the color. That's a great note to start off with here. The color is an incredible, like, Destroyer Nardo gray, but it also is metallic. If you guys can see the sun reflecting off that with a lot of gold in it. So it pops, even though it's gray. It matches this battleship perfectly. But at the same time, it's still got a little bit of color in there, and it's not matte, so you know, it stands out. It's a great looking car. This has some 20s wrapped in Pirelli 255 35 20 tires there, the Centenato P7s, and inside that you can see there are massive Brembo brakes that look really good, honestly. Probably a 12-13 inch rotor inside there, and the brakes work incredibly well. All four wheels are driven by the super handling all-wheel drive system. The front end of this thing looks incredible as well. Big Type-S badge, intercooler just hanging out here in the open, parking sensors through the front as well. You can see this thing's been, it's been through it after our journey across all of the US here. Incredible looking headlights. I love these LED headlights. They work very, very well. The auto high beams do what they're supposed to do as well, even though they take a little bit too long to turn on after you pass somebody. They take a little bit too long to turn off as well. A couple people, maybe two people over 3,000 miles flashed us because if they're in the opposite lane on a divided highway, it's just a little bit slow. It could turn off a bit faster. Most cars don't have that trouble anymore. Like my Ford nails it every time, and if Ford can do it, I figure everybody can do it. Ford should be like the baseline of the automotive industry, right? So an Acura that costs a lot for a sedan, it should be really, really good. And it's okay, it works. It's got auto high beams, I can't complain. It's got the front camera hanging out right here, and of course the radar inside the Acura badge right there. And the camera suite is very good as well. You can always see all the way around the car. The headlights, back to that, they work well. The cutoffs on the headlights were excellent, and of course, when you turn the high beams on, you can just see forever, all the way through Montana and Wyoming. When you need a lot of headlight range and there's a lot of deer. We must have passed thousands of deer on this trip, maybe the most I've ever seen in my life. But back to the car, the splitter looks incredible. This is a factory splitter, not an eBay bolt-on or anything like that. And it's definitely been scraped on a few things before we even got the car. So black wheels on the Type-S, black mirror caps, turn signals integrated into the mirrors, along with the cameras as well. There's some puddle lights right there. Power folding mirrors, so that's always nice to have. Of course, just touch the handles for lock and unlock. There go the mirrors, and touch the inside of the handle maybe to unlock. Wow, it just keeps locking. Apparently you can't unlock it. All right, well that doesn't make a lot of sense. I hadn't tried that until just now. Coming around the back, we have a cool Acura logo hiding in the taillights right here. Good looking taillights. I mean, it's a very handsome car. You know, Acura designed this very well. Quad exhaust tips, big diffuser, nice black touches in the rear, reflectors down there in the haunches, and it makes it look nice and wide. It's an aggressive looking car. Of course, the shouty badge right there for the super handling all-wheel drive, another Type-S badge, and a black spoiler to tie it all together. You can also see that beautiful red interior back there. The trunk is not power, but does have a gas shock that opens it up nicely every time you open it. It would just be nice for 60,000. You know, we used to get power trunks at 60,000. I'm kidding, that was a $100,000 option always. There is no spare tire, and you do have seat releases right there for the rear seats. We have bags in here, so I don't know if I can show you the trunk space, but we also did this whole trip with a set of golf clubs in the back. the only team to do that. And I will say that it held the golf clubs and had tons of other room in the back if we needed more luggage. It's got a huge trunk, very usable. Okay, battery underneath the styrofoam, and yep, no spare under. No spare under there. That's a big battery though. So that is the trunk of the TLX. Again, the beautiful paint really pops here in the sun, and rear parking sensors all the way around. Now, let's see, the gas cap locks automatically if the car is locked. It does not have a gas cap. It's a capless fill, which is very nice, saves you a lot of time. You don't have to go looking for the gas cap or anything like that. Love that. I know it's pretty standard now, but every time I use it for a while, I'm like, whew, all cars should have been this forever. So nice. All right, let's hop inside this thing and do a quick run through of the interior and what it's like to drive the TLX. So, one of the craziest features in this car, you win some, you lose some, Acura. They gave us auto windows all the way around. All four have the double click and are full auto, which is incredible. Huge shout out to Acura for that. But door panel tour, we've got the memories right there, set button, some nice plastic with a little triangle logo in it repeating. It's really nice. Handles are plastic. One thing that drives me nuts about this car is when you pull the handle, it does not unlock it. So let's say we lock this thing. Okay, well, it does in the front, it doesn't in the back. Because I had to get out of the back many times. Every time I was in the back, I had to unlock it and then pull the handle. So that's rather upsetting. It's funny that it does it in the front. Moving down the door panel here, we have the power folding mirrors, the mirror controls, which are buried underneath this handle. You can use them, but they are buried. You have to slide your hand inside this, which is not a great design, but the door pull is very nice. And it's not like you have to adjust your mirrors very often, so you can't complain about that too much. It's not wonderful from an ergonomic standpoint. Maybe just bury the mirrors, put them up here or something. But they didn't do that, it works fine. Lock and unlock buttons are easy to find, gotta give them credit there. Window locks right there, and those wonderful window controls again. It's worth mentioning twice, full auto windows. Give that to us on everything. It doesn't cost any money to build cars with full auto windows. Right here is the trunk release and the ELS Studio 3D speaker system, which is pretty good. Now I need to mention one more thing in the door panel. The blind spot indicator is in the A-pillar of the door, basically, right? This is the corner of the door that you have to pull off to remove the mirror on most cars. It's the worst design there ever has been. Put the blind spot indicator either right here on the mirror, like BMW, or in the mirror like everyone else on the planet. Stop doing this. I know Tesla loves to do this too. They put that LED right here on the pillar. Stop doing that. Put it in one spot so when you switch cars, because I think a lot of people drive different cars, it should be cohesive. Like everyone knows your blind spot indicator is in the top corner of the mirror. It makes sense. Quit this nonsense. It does work and you can see it, so that's nitpicking, I get it. But also it's not good design. Anyway, Type-S badges down here in the door sills, they look great. Floor mats, they actually look great. Red stitching to match. The pedals look very cool as well. And let's hop in here and take a look at the controls. After a quick look at the seats are good. They do show you what you're doing on the infotainment screen, always nice as well, so you know what you're adjusting, especially in the four-way dial there for the lumbar and the side bolsters and stuff like that. You can adjust those, which you'll probably end up taking them all the way out because the bolsters are pretty tight on this thing. Type-S logos embossed in the headrests, they look great as well. And this is like an Alcantara. These are heated and ventilated with auto seat modes as well. The seats are, I'd say, excellent. They could use massage. If you're gonna drive 3,000 miles in one of these, massage would be an incredible option to have. But they work just fine, and if you're driving this thing locally or having some fun on a track, I think it'd be a pretty solid seat choice. So let's hop inside here, take a quick look at the controls under the vent here. We've got the heads-up display, tilt, and brightness controls. The heads-up display is huge in this thing. You can see the cutout is huge, and on the windshield itself, it's huge as well. Full color, very, very good heads-up. And you can put everything you want in it. The navigation, the currently playing track, you can switch the modes of the infotainment. Honestly, the heads-up is really, really good. I mean, it's probably one of the better heads-up displays there are. Not quite as nice as BMW. I think Hyundai is probably on par with this, maybe a little better, but it's a good heads-up display that does what you need. It shows if the lane keeping's on, cruise control speed, and if the cruise is set and your speed, which is basically what you want, and it being full color is such a nice touch. Heads-up displays in color are just incredible. So Huge shout out to Acura for nailing the window switches and the heads-up display. We've got this button right here, which is like the safety envelope. You hit it once and it turns on all the safety features. Your windscreen heater, I think this is actually wiper parking heat. I don't think it's a heated windshield, but there are some waves in it, so it might be a fully heated windshield. Parking sensors right there, traction off right there, and the cluster illumination right there. One crazy thing about the cluster illumination, this turns down all the lights in the cluster, and it doesn't dim the infotainment. I'm pretty upset about that. When you're driving at night and you want to turn it down, you have to go through like a rack of menus to dim this, while everything else in the car dims as you would expect. That's also really bad design. Please do not make it difficult to turn down all the screens in the car. Eye strain does affect you when you're driving long periods at night. I know this is weird that I'm like reviewing the car in a use case, but these are all use cases that come up when you own a car. So I actually think they're all pretty valid criticisms of the car. Electronic parking brake right down here. It is not intrusive. It does not randomly turn on when doors are open or anything like that. The parking brake works as it should. This is a manual tilt telescope wheel, no power joystick right there. You have to unlock it and slide it in and out or do whatever you need to do. Auto lights, the auto lights work really well. Turn signals work as you would expect. Auto wipers that were unobtrusive, they worked perfectly the whole time, even in the rain, they were excellent. So a lot of credit to the wipers. What's really cool is this camera button out on the end of this stock that turns on the safety, like the 360 cameras around the car. So you don't have to go looking through menus once you know where that's at. Really nice as well. It's really cool to have quick access to your cameras. Let's turn this thing on real quick. Starts up, little Type-S animation. The seatbelt ding never stops in this car. Even if you take a back seatbelt off while you're driving because you need to go get something, the seatbelt dings are far too aggressive. So we'll get to the gauge cluster here in just a second, but first let's talk about the killer steering wheel. It's a sort of flat bottom, leather wrapped with some beautiful stitching. Really, really nice steering wheel. Love the Type-S badge in it. All the controls are perfect. I can't say enough good things about the controls. You can shut the infotainment off instantly. It's basically just power pause, you know. Tap that to shut everything up if you need to pay attention. Really nice. They just absolutely killed it on this. Both of these jog dials that can also scroll side to side are awesome. You can see it switching tracks right there. Super nice. Volume is very reliable and you don't have to think about it. A few minutes in this car and you're in love with how good the steering wheel controls are. Here's your cruise and lane keeping. You will need to turn the lane keeping on and off quite a bit, so I'm glad that it's easy. And then there's your adaptive cruise follow distance and the rest of your cruise settings. One annoying thing is the paddle shifters are not great. They turn with the wheel. So you're like coming down a ramp, downshift, 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 and then you make like a left turn because you're stopping to go to a gas station and you're like upshift and the paddle's gone because it turned with the wheel. Paddle shifters should never turn with the wheels. And at least up and down are on the right sides and they're not two-way paddles like the old Mini Coopers or something. So you gotta give them some credit. Hey!
This is insane. Wait, should I just park up there?
Yeah, you should. The gauge cluster on this thing looks handsome as well, going along with the design of the vehicle. So great gauge cluster. It changes modes and there's a bunch of different options. Well, two options for display really. I shouldn't say a bunch, there are two. But you have comfort in the drive modes here, which shows you everything there, and it changes the cluster as well. And of course the ambient lighting does change to match. It has great ambient lighting, goes all the way up here, down the doors, and changes all of the colors in the two displays too. So great ambient lighting, great displays. Here's comfort, it's very chill. We'll ignore that we just put, you know, an oil change of miles on this thing. There's normal, you get some normal gauges as you would expect. Here's sport, and it looks a little more sporty, and you can see it raises the idle RPM as well, probably 200 or 300 RPM. And it also turns off auto hold automatically in sport, which is pretty cool. And then you hold it again, and you're holding the drive till it goes to Sport Plus, and it raises the RPM idle to 900 and change right there, and it gives you boost pressure in the gauges. No vacuum, but you do get to see boost pressure, which is pretty cool, and it adds a G meter in the gauges as well. All of your ADAS stuff's right here in the center. You can see it's lane keeping, if it knows there's a vehicle in front of you, everything like that. It does a pretty good job with everything there. Since we're talking about that, let's talk about another really annoying thing. Every time it locks onto a vehicle in front of you, it beeps. And then when that vehicle moves or you move, it beeps, and this thing never stops beeping. Can you imagine driving a car for 3,000 miles that beeps and goes, there's a car up ahead, and then beeps and goes, you change lanes, and it just doesn't stop. But on the flip side of that, the turn signals don't make any noise, which is very nice. I don't think we need turn signal noises anymore. Just warn us when they've been on too long, or auto cancel them or something like that. The no turn signal noise was amazing, but the incessant beeping was absolutely not amazing. Other than that, this cluster is great. There's a bunch of different displays. You can scroll through them right there. You don't need a manual to understand it. It works like it should. And then this one, of course, scrolls through infotainment, things like that. And you can also change heads-up display controls inside the gauge cluster here. So if I remember right, let's see, you got driver attention level, seat belts for each seat. You can turn off everything. The safety support is we went in here and we were trying to stop the beeping. So we got rid of the road departure mitigation, and we should have just turned off all of it because the beeping will just drive you insane. So we could never figure out how to shut off that noise. And the heads-up display controls might be in gauge. There it is. There's gauge layout, so you can see the two different gauge clusters. Looks good like that. That's very nice, actually. And then back to the old school gauges, because honestly, we all know and love those. This side of the steering wheel controls the heads-up display. You hit menu, and then it pops up here. You can see me scrolling through the menus. Nav, phone, XM, CarPlay. You can switch sources up here, and you can also customize what shows up inside the heads-up display. So that's very nice, easy to do while you're driving, which is great. You're out on the highway, you need to make some setting changes, it's perfect. Why is the heads-up display almost more functional than the infotainment that is absolutely terrible? Let's talk about that. So here we are in the infotainment. You get a touchpad that has these 4 corner dot things that you can press, and then you also get another touchpad that moves the other side. And then you get some nice buttons that work great, back, home, and your split screen control, love that. Dedicated volume control, love that. It works really well. Track dedicated buttons, love that. That's all really good. But this one is reliable. Up and down is reliable. You can't be upset about that, right? Music playing, some clock, and of course your navigation right there. But this whole section of the screen and this whole thing are what nightmares are made of, ladies and gentlemen. This scrolls backwards. So this should be the home screen when you go in. It's not. I mean, it is. It shows that you're on the first page. But to switch pages, you have to swipe backwards. And you have to do it multiple times. You can't... That's so insane. It's one of the worst designs I've ever seen. Once you scroll all the way the wrong direction on the touchpad, you get to settings. And then in settings, it probably takes you 5 to 10 minutes to change Bluetooth devices that are connected. It should be a phone list button like every other car on the planet, but it's not. So I hope that there's only one person ever using your car and they only ever use CarPlay, and you'll be okay. If you need to switch users in the car, just game over. Everybody else has a button that's easy to access, maybe in the smart shortcuts, something like that, that will instantly let you get to Bluetooth and change devices. This ain't it. This navigation drove us nuts. You have to just think about it and try it and think about it and try it so much. It's probably the biggest distraction in the world. I think it might be one of the worst. It's snappy, I'll give it that. It never screws up like the Silverado EV did for me. It doesn't like accidentally not load pages. So it's kind of built like a real car infotainment system, but at the same time, it's really hard to use. Worse than Lexus's touchpad, and Lexus's touchpad's pretty bad too. Watch this, I'm gonna keep scrolling down. I'm trying to scroll through this list, and you can't scroll. You have to go push on a corner. That should never be a thing. And then, like, I'm pushing the corner and nothing's happening. Now it works, now it doesn't. This stuff just drove us absolutely nuts. There, I'm trying to go up a page. Oh, but I clicked. That's not what I wanted, you see? Car makers have been getting this stuff right for 20 years now, and I don't understand what's going on now where people are getting it wrong. Hyundai's getting it right. Porsche's getting it right. Mercedes not getting it right. Really hard to use inbox sometimes. This not getting it right. Sometimes I just don't understand. Ford gets it right. Let's talk about the rest of the buttons real quick. Climate control, it's all got buttons. It's really good. It's got an auto button right there where it belongs, and you should never have to use anything but auto. It's great. Passenger temps right there, driver temps right there. Every button for all of the climates there, and none of it's in the touchscreen. They don't even give it to you up there. And it works just fine like that, you know? We don't have to have climate in the screen. It's cool, but it works great the way it is. Let's get rid of that heated seat right there and get this. There we go. It's a little quieter in here once you turn off those cooled seats, and then turn mine back on to make more noise. Auto controls on the heated and cooled seats, so it can change with the external and internal temperatures. Really, really good. Love that. I don't love that you can't push it again to turn it off. I forgot we found that problem. So now you have to go through all of it if you want to shut it back off. Obviously, bad design right there. Make sure auto can turn back off. Love the shifter to death. I know people love to hate on button shifters, but it's so reliable. Drive sport, if you want to shift gears right there, it pops up instantly. Neutral right there, tap for reverse, cameras come on. Excellent, excellent shifter, fast, responsive, worked every single time, not a single issue. Dynamic mode, turn the knob to change your drive modes. Let's get out of the cameras. Well, you have to hit back. You can't just push the camera button. And then push the Acura button to load individual up. It's the last drive mode. And now let's go back to normal because I like to keep it right there. Auto start stop right there if you get tired of the engine shutting off at lights. I know we all do because the climate starts getting moist once the AC turns off. So you'll probably end up shutting that off. And then brake hold, I love that to death. There's nothing better than brake hold when you're sitting at a stoplight. So shout out to that being a big prominent button right there. A little piano black might get scratched up, but if you're me, it never gets scratched up. If you have kids, it's probably getting scratched up. I like the piano black. It's a big point of contention these days, but I like it. You've got this wrist rest here to try to keep your hand steady on the touchpad. It does work, so a little credit there. And then the phone heater is right here. It barely worked at all when I was running wireless CarPlay. It was struggling to even maintain my phone's battery, and of course it was smoking hot. And apparently for some reason, it has an on and off button, which I don't think it should. I mean, maybe some people don't want their phone charging while it's sitting there, but no one else has ever put a button there, so just don't. Why would you do that? And then in here, we've got a big center console with some Tylenol from the trip. People were beat after sitting that long. 12-volt accessory outlet, USB-C, USB-A, little coin holder on the edge, and a big center console, and it's lighted too, wrapped in that beautiful red leather. 2 cup holders that work well. I don't think they're actually big enough to hold my water bottle, which is unfortunate. So that's a little bit of a downside, but they're good cup holders. And for the most part, they keep cups from rattling as well. That drives everybody nuts, I know. So it's good to have the anti-rattle springs in there. The dash itself looks great. I love the climate vents, love all the placements, love this whole design that flows up into the infotainment. They really did nail this. Even if it does look like an iPad stuck to the dash, it still works very well. And of course, glove box with a nice soft open, honestly too soft. It takes a while to open up there. And you can also turn on and off the trunk buttons there. We've got a power sliding sunroof, full auto of course, auto close, sunshade slides back, will not power slide back forward. It's a manual sunshade. It just gets pulled back with the sunroof. Nice lights all the way through. All the interior lighting was great. And a sunglasses holder hanging out up here, along with home link buttons under the mirror. 3 home link buttons right there. And of course, power for the auto dimming. So lighted. These are LED, even though they're yellow. The LED lights inside the mirror, very nice. These are speakers for phone calls. I know it doesn't want to focus there, but there's the microphones, and there's one for everybody in the car. There's even a rear microphone, so phone conversations while driving are excellent. The tweeters are up there in the pillars. It's a 3-way system in the front, along with these height speakers for phone calls. And even the back has height speakers. The system sounds great, honestly. The audio system in here it's very good. It doesn't play low enough. It doesn't have a lot of down low bass, but it has a ton of output, and it's fine. It's not gonna be Burmester high-end, Burmester 3D, but it's fine, honestly. I have no negatives to this system. After we shut off the DTS 3D thing and it stopped trying to fake some kind of surround environment in here, it sounds great. So shut off the DTS thing and you'll have a really good system with the ELS Studio 3D that's in here. And the additional speakers for phone calls, they nailed it. It's so good. So the back seats have a good little magazine pocket, the nice hard ones with the elastic. Love those layouts because they look nice. They don't sag like the cloth ones do. Back seat is roomy enough. I think the seats are a little too upright if you have to sleep back here, but honestly, they did what they could and it works great. The headrests also they move forward and back and up and down, so that is good. And the back headrests also move up. This red leather is so nice, and this is like the comfiest center console armrest you've ever used in your life. Love that. It's maybe the comfiest thing in this whole car. Cup holders, little holder back there for sunglasses, that worked great. 2 Type-Cs for the rear along with the vents. So this back seat, while it's tight, you can see it's tight. I mean, sitting back here is a little rough. It's very, very good. If you have kids back here, it's perfect. Love this little design right here on the center too. This car is a true 5-seater, so if you need to get 3 kids back here, it won't be a problem, or 2 adults is doable. Let's look under the hood real quick. I know it's gonna be loud because it's running, but this is that 3-liter V6 with the turbo. Actually, everything looks very serviceable. I'm super happy about that. This is my first time looking in here. Great looking engine, 0 W20 oil, and running that light stuff in here. And the engine mounts actually look really easy to change. You know you're going to be changing those 200,000 miles in. ECU easy to get to. Charge pipe. I mean, honestly, everything in here looks serviceable. O2 sensor, super easy. And changing the turbo. I know it's a lot of Hondas are needing turbo replacements as they're starting to mile out of here. And it looks like it might be the easiest job ever. I can't say enough good things about this under the hood. Little jump port, nice. Where's your negative? Right there, maybe? I don't see a stud for it, but it looks like it would be very easy to do. Map, easy to do. Air filter, reasonably easy to do. It looks like you have to unscrew it. But other than that, everything under the hood looks very nice. Well packaged on that. Well done. I like this heat shield for the turbo on the hood too. This is honestly really, really well done. 1, 2, 3, 4 YF though. Get ready for the expensive stuff. Back inside so we can hear, but that engine makes 355 horsepower. Honestly, it's a reasonable amount of horsepower, and 354 foot-pounds of torque, another very reasonable amount of horsepower. It's a twin scroll turbo that does spool incredibly fast. You can tell when the power is coming on the big end, but it also has power off the line all the time. So you're not just sitting around waiting on turbo lag. You know, you usually aren't these days, but this thing handles all of that very well. Power goes through a 10-speed automatic to the shouty all-wheel drive system. It's the coolest thing ever to say. Be like, we got shouty. So the super handling all-wheel drive system. But of course, that 10-speed automatic is nails. It never made a single wrong decision the whole trip in normal mode and sport mode. The tuning on the drivetrain is unbelievable. I think it's slow. I don't think it made enough power for what it is, for $60,000 and being a sports car. But as a package, it's put together incredibly well. Like, the engine does what it's supposed to do, the transmission does what it's supposed to do, the all-wheel drive does what it's supposed to do, but you can't slide it around. The power could come on a little quicker. The big power could come on a little quicker. And the transmission, I can't say a single bad thing about it. It was always flawless. Upshifts, it sometimes predicts upshifts and downshifts. Like, it's so good. So normal, old school, 10-speed automatic, that's flawless. And of course, the all-wheel drive is great. I do wish it'd let me have a little power in the rear sometimes to have fun, but at the same time, it's just playing it on the road the whole time. So with that said, let's get out on the road and drive this thing. Well, the camera died, so here we are on the phone, and it's time for the driving impressions. I just drove this thing all the way back through Boston from the USS Constitution to our hotel, and I have some thoughts. I know I said this thing doesn't make enough power for 60 grand, but when it is turned up, when you're in sport and you're also in Sport Plus in the drive mode and the transmission's in sport, this thing is unbelievable. It feels superhuman when it comes on boost, and it kind of stays in the boost, and the throttle is responsive enough. When it's in normal, it's actually a little laggy. If you have to drive this in heavy traffic like Boston, you're gonna be pushing like 75% throttle pedal before it starts to do what you need it to do. But right now, it is turned up, absolutely. And it was an absolute blast getting over here. It was always in the right gear. The one thing that I have noticed, I noticed this while we were on the road and while I was driving through traffic right now, a lot of torque steer. When it's wide open throttle, it loves torque steer out of the front end because it doesn't move enough power to the rear. But it's still planted. You're not gonna ever lose control, right? Because it's all front biased. So very, very fun trip across town. Obviously, our trip across the country was also very, very fun. So I can't say too many bad things about it from a driving experience, but when it's in Sport Plus, the power's there like you would expect. It's a little too twitchy. Like, I don't know if you can tell, but the second I let off the throttle, it's like, and it also loves telling you to brake. Well, it wouldn't do it for me right there, but if you had any throttle and there's someone close to you, it just says brake and flashes the entire heads-up display orange. So let's see, we might be able to do it right now. Nope, won't do it. But during the trip, anytime we were just following, like, you know, a follow distance that's normal like this in heavy traffic, it was telling us to brake the entire time. The suspension is perfect. I don't have a single bad thing to say about the suspension. No rocking. We could look at other cars on the road and tell that this thing was handling way better. No bouncing, going over bumps, but also still being like supple, right? It was a nice ride. So the suspension's perfect. The steering was perfect. Throttle can be a bit twitchy in Sport Plus, but in Sport Plus, you might as well be using it as a gas pedal, right? And squeezing in power like you're driving on track, right? So you're probably driving really hard in Sport Plus. Sport's perfect in the city. And it's fun, honestly. It's a pretty fun car, especially after this little blast across town. I had an amazing time, and the system still plays loud enough with the windows down at speed that you can just have a blast. It's a good car. I still don't think it's a $60,000 car, but I think it's a good car. But I do have one other big complaint. We talked about this quite a bit in a video you'll see soon, where we actually drove this thing across the country. And that is the adaptive cruise works great, but the lane centering and lane keeping, anytime the sun is in its eyes or it sees a shadow, it kind of lane keeps like this. It doesn't ping pong, not full ping pong. It just twitches the steering wheel back and forth like this, which is a little bit annoying until it gets straightened out when it's on a completely straight road. It does great. It has zero issue with that. But sun in its eyes, it could never find the lanes again. The entire sunrise, there were like an hour and a half where we couldn't have this thing drive itself. And when it shuts off, if you just don't take the wheel when it tells you to grab the wheel, because it tells you to grab the wheel every 10 seconds. Two things about this, right? If you just don't touch the wheel, or it thinks you're not touching the wheel, eventually it just shuts off. It doesn't pull over. It doesn't slowly apply the brakes. It doesn't like beep at you loud. It should scream at you, right? It should be like, drive the car. Like every other car escalates how it warns you that it's going to stop self-driving. This, you know, we're beat, 3,000 miles straight across, basically no sleep, driving in shifts. All of us are beat mentally. This thing just shuts off and will just drive you straight into a guardrail. Never happened to us because we were awake and paying attention, but we did test it, just letting go of the wheel, and eventually it just shuts off. And if you were actually falling asleep, it would just steer into a guardrail and you'd die. That would be it. So that is the worst way to handle lane centering. Please do not ever do that. This might be one of the last cars left that's that bad at that. And then of course, while the sun's in its eyes, it can't drive at all. So that's a bit of a nightmare there. And I think those were all of my complaints with its ADAS. The beeping, the incessant beeping is also very bad, but eventually you get used to that, even though it beats on your brain quite a bit. So there you have it. That is the 2024 TLX Type-S. Is it worth $60,000? Tell me in the comments below. It's a pretty great car from a drivetrain perspective, but the tech is a little bit of a mess. I do want to mention one other thing, credit to Acura. This spinning animation is so absolutely awesome. Anytime you've got album art over here, and it just permanently spins this thing around here, and it looks really, really good, like a record turning. So I'll give them a lot of credit for that design choice. Love that. I hate that the touchpad scrolls backwards. So that one really hurts. I honestly give this thing much higher marks if the touchpad thing worked correctly. And it would honestly just be nice if that was a touchscreen. I know it's way away. You'd have to lean way forward. But if you could touch this stuff to like get to the menu you wanted and hit CarPlay, I'd give the infotainment like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. But the way it works, unfortunately, it's a solid 3 out of 10 car. Love this, hate this to death. Just get rid of it. It doesn't belong in any car. And then turning it off, you get some more cool animations. Oh yeah, how nice is that? Really well done, Acura. I didn't talk about this, so a quick note on the key. You have to hold the engine hold forever. I don't think it'll remote start if there's a key in the car, because we had all the keys in the car here. I think we have a whole bunch of keys, and then we have 2 remotes. So one of them was always in the car in case somebody else needed to drive it, and it wouldn't remote start. It is 2-way, very, very nice. It does confirm lock, unlock, and engine start. It tells you all of that on the 3 LEDs right here on top, if you can see that. Hold for trunk is like 2 seconds. Hold for engine seems to be almost 10 seconds, which is, come on. The holds have to be the same. It's standard key design. We've all been doing this for 100 years. Like, engine hold and trunk hold should both be 1 or 2 seconds. You don't change that. But that's the key for the TLX Type-S. It's a $60,000 sedan for maybe a cool dad that wants something to haul his kids around in and might go to the track once in his life. I think it meets all those criteria pretty well. You'd have a good day with it. But is it worth $60,000 when you could just buy a C8? Like, you're probably not gonna want people in the back seats that often. Maybe kids. Ooh, a Rivian Prime truck. Ah, it's so cool to see. After an EV race across the country, that's so cool. Everyone loves the Rivian Prime truck. It's beautiful. Anyway, it's a $57,000 MSRP car in reality, so 60 plus out the door after I looked at that. 355 horsepower, 354 foot-pounds of torque, also reasonable numbers, very impressive 10 years ago, less impressive today. But that's TLX Type-S. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop WatchJRGo.com for cool shirts not like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will talk to you next time. It does look really good. You got to give it credit. In every light, in the shaded light, in the sun, it always looks good. But again, what's up with this? Why doesn't this lock and unlock? That locked. It clearly locked. What's... Unlock. I know somebody that only drives Acuras will be like, that's just okay. You do touch the inside, it just wasn't working on the other side. Probably a mistake, but it does work correctly. All right, so lock, touch the handle to unlock, good stuff. Now we're over that one. We've solved one mystery of the TLX.